Welcome to the Atlantic Current. I am Vince Martin, here as always with Toll McAdoo from the Irish Politics newsletter. We are talking today, like so many other people literally around the world, about the Epstein Files. We're going to try and take a little bit of a unique angle. Particularly up front, we're going to focus on the European side of the story, which is not getting a ton of coverage here in the States. But the Epstein Files, this release of 3 million documents, this is now major news on the continent, isn't it, Toll?
It is. It's a massive story. It's all anybody's been talking about. Now, Vince, I have to start by asking you, are you a billionaire?
I am not, just shy.
And you're not connected to any world elite in any kind of way?
I'm not. That's a good disclosure to have up front.
Okay, so you're not in the Epstein Files?
I'm not, no.
And neither am I. Just for the wife, for the kids and the wife, anybody that's listening. None of us are in the Epstein Files. But we have to start also and say legally that just because you're in the Epstein Files does not mean you've done anything wrong.
No, that's true.
Okay, that my lawyers said that. Be sure and say that, would you please, with Ireland's defamation laws and all that. But yes, it is an incredible story on this side of the Atlantic. From London to Oslo to Warsaw, Dublin, everywhere. It's all anybody's talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of odd that the practical impact of this seems like it has been greater in Europe than in the U.S. It's kind of a lot of gossip here. We haven't really had anyone new facing allegations from this release. So, there's been some stuff about Bill Gates, who co-founded Microsoft, and former President Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, of course, but all those connections were already known to some extent. Whereas if you look overseas, it seems like there's actually just some brand new names where people didn't realize that they even had connections to Epstein at all.
Yeah, we see. I have a theory there, and I think Trump has been flooding the zone, targeting very high-profile European people, and all anybody's talking about at the moment is all these Europeans that are on the list, and it's deflecting attention away from him. The Trump administration promised complete transparency, and millions of more documents have now been released, but the effect, in fact, has been to obscure the truth, not illuminate it.
Definitely, the chaos here probably does serve Trump well politically. There's just so much that people are getting through, and half things are getting twisted, and there's denials and allegations. That's probably a fair point. I'm not convinced that it's intentional, but it's definitely having that effect.
Well, you know me, I see malice everywhere I go in politics, so I have a suspicion it is intentional. The guys that are vetting these are Trump's closest people. They're the people that are saying where it goes, what goes out, who's in it. And it's Trump's lawyer who's essentially the person that's the head vetter that decides what goes out and what doesn't.
Yeah, that's fair.
So back to Europe, there's more revelations about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, Duke of York, for those of you who do not know who that is. He's referenced in the new release, including undated photographs, lots of more mentions and emails. There's a photograph of him kneeling over what appears to be quite a young lady, young girl. His wife, Fergie, engaged in somewhat very bizarre behaviour as a prominent royal, and what some might call, quite frankly, mad behaviour as a mother in bringing her daughters to visit Epstein after he was released from prison for being a paedophile. Now, what mother does that? And the Crown Princess of Norway, has been found to be engaged in very weird behaviour also. She asked Epstein in November 2012, after he was found guilty of being a paedophile, is it inappropriate for a mother to suggest 2 naked women carrying a surfboard for my 15-year-old son's wallpaper? Now, Vince, you know how I like to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to suggest not only is it inappropriate, it is bad.
It really is. I saw that and I was trying to understand her thought process. I was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. And the only thing I could think of is that maybe even Epstein, the most depraved man she knew, would say, no, it's a bad idea. And then she'd go to her kid, look, I know a guy who has his own island full of trafficked women. There's pictures of naked ladies all over the place. Even he says this is inappropriate. You're not doing it. But yeah, that is one of the more bizarre stories.
She's in trouble.
I'm sure. Yeah.
In England and Norway now, they're questioning, do we need a royal family?
Wow. Yeah.
A year earlier, Bill Gates' science advisor, a guy called Boris Nikolic, fresh out of a DARPA meeting, which is a high science thing for the CIA, is it? Or something to that?
Yeah. It's like a super high-end research platform for the Department of Defense. Yeah.
Okay. So he said to Epstein that the Crown Princess of Norway wants to carry your kid. Now, Epstein, not being in want of his full faculties himself, called her a mess and invited Nicholas to his island. You also have everyone's favourite conspiracy theory family in there, the Rothschilds also. They're up to their neck in it. And we're going to come back to this later. But Peter Mandelson, a long-time British Labour politician, a former UK minister, and more recently ambassador to the United States from
the US,
King James, he appears thousands of times in the document trove, including emails in which he and Epstein discuss political and economic matters. Reports say bank records in the files also showed payments to Mandelstein. Now, there's two words for that, bribery and treachery, but we are. Miroslav Lasic, Slovakia's national security advisor and former president of the UN General Assembly, no less, is shown in emails with Epstein that relate to young women once again. He has, of course, denied misconduct, but he's had to resign from his post in Slovakia amid the fallout. On your side of the pond, you have Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and all the great and good of a US society involved also, don't you, Vince?
Yeah, there's a few people caught up. Reid Hoffman, who co-founded PayPal and then founded LinkedIn. He's admitted having more contact with Epstein than he had previously announced. The Bill Gates one is kind of gossipy that he might have asked Epstein for advice about slipping his wife an antibiotic because he was worried he gave her a sexually transmitted disease.
I saw her in a video on a podcast and she seemed to confirm that, all but confirm it, which was...
She did not deny it, let's put it that way.
Yeah, she did not deny it. I was quite taken back. I looked at it and went,
It's never the ones you expect, I guess. But has there been anything in Ireland itself? I've seen a few weird tweets about Epstein's jet supposedly landing in Waterford. Everything you see, particularly on Twitter/X, you have to take with I was going to say a shaker of salt, but maybe, I don't know, a mountain of salt, a truckload of salt, something like that.
Like the truckloads of salt that are driving around Raleigh in North Carolina, pushing the roads, I think.
We don't have any truckloads of salt. That's why my freaking kid can't go to school.
That's terrible. That's very poor behaviour. That sounds like Ireland. That sounds like something we would do over here. He has landed in Dublin. There has been some stuff in relation to Ireland. Okay. On the financial side, he wanted to be involved in a consortium to buy Allied Irish Bank, it would appear, during the 2008 crash, and things were
during the crash,
very distressed. There was also emails to Epstein from unnamed sources asking him to hook him up with women in Dublin.
Wow. Okay.
His plane had been to Dublin and Waterford. He's in and out of Ireland quite a bit, and he did seem to have financial business interests related to Ireland. And nobody in particular has been caught up. And I wouldn't say it anyway, otherwise we just get sued because Ireland's... So, fair enough. There is stuff skirting around the edges. The big name, though, was George Mitchell, who's been cancelled already, despite no evidence of wrongdoing has been found against him. His name appears in the file along with Bill Clinton, Tony Blair. He hasn't been accused of anything. He doesn't appear to have done anything. Now, I don't know.
Yeah, there's 3 million documents here. That's always the catch. You want to say, there's nothing there, and then some of them might have found something by the time we put this out. But by the time
we put this out, the whole world could be guilty. Who knows? But he was cancelled, I think, a little bit prematurely by Queen's University in Belfast. They said it wasn't appropriate, usual legalistic stuff, and they stopped naming a building after him.
Yeah, well, they had a scholarship program named after him as well, which was supposed to be based off the Rhodes Scholar model at Oxford,
He's been cancelled essentially by Queen's University Belfast, and it's deeply, darkly amusing that he's getting cancelled in Belfast, of all places, where, it's engaged in massive amounts of sectarianism and some very terrible behaviour a lot of the time, and he's been cancelled. So he hasn't been found guilty of anything, but I think the cancellation might be a bit premature.
Yeah, it's interesting to go through that because in the US, again, it's mostly just been gossip, whether it's Hoffman or Gates or Clinton. I know some American listeners might dispute that characterization quite a bit, but there's certainly not any smoking gun that has changed the perception of people involved in the scandal. Again, most of these people we already knew had some connection. The one interesting reveal, I think, is on our old buddy Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Topic of, I think that was episode 10. he had said repeatedly before this release that he refused invitations to go to the island. And there are a few emails in there that make quite clear that Musk was not refusing to go.
Yes, our favorite ketamine space monkey, Elon Musk, made a big deal about, oh God, I'm the most innocent guy on planet Earth. I'm the most innocent billionaire of all time.
Yeah, I refuse to go. I refuse to go. Yeah.
And there was a smoking gun. I'll push back on that, Vince. There is a smoking gun.
I guess that's fair. Yeah.
And there are emails in there with Musk asking, begging, pleading to come to the island. In 2012, he asked, when would the wildest party be on? When is that happening? When can I be there? Don't start it without me. And this contradicts everything Musk was saying last year, that he refused to go. And again, this was all known that he was a pedophile at that time. So
it was. Oh yeah, it was known that Epstein was a pedophile.
Sorry. Let me do that again. Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
No, to be clear, listeners, he is Epstein. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. You scared the hell out of me. I was like, oh, we're done.
Yes.
You're going to have to scrub the servers.
Yeah. There are emails.
We talked in our year-end episode, the highlights and lowlights episode, which I can't recommend highly enough for listeners, by the way. That was a good episode. I was re-listening to that because I wanted to make sure we didn't cover any ground on this. We talked about Epstein a little bit in that episode. And it's a good episode if you're one of our new listeners, and I know we have a bunch of new listeners. I'd recommend you go check that one out. Toll, do you know what our least listened to episode is? It's going to break your heart.
Is it the health one?
It's the healthcare one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The episode that we literally had to delay for like 3 weeks over Christmas break because we spent so much time researching it.
Yes, I know.
And again, if you're a new listener, please go listen to it. It's really good. I know the title sounds awful, but you should go listen to it. It's a good one. We worked hard. It was really fun. But in any case, let's get back to the Epstein Files. But yeah, in that year-end episode, I called him a liar straight up.
Yes,
and look, I get he's done great stuff, and it's really wild. His reaction to this is just he's going on X over and over again and just keeps saying, oh, it exonerates me, it proves me right. And everyone's like, no, man, this is not what you said. Like, okay, maybe we don't have evidence you went to the island. We have evidence. It's right there, man. You really wanted to go. You asked for the wildest party, and he just keeps posting about it. And he's gone after Hoffman, the LinkedIn guy, to try and distract. It's really been just a really impressive bout of gaslighting for Musk. I do give him credit for that. He's posted dozens of times about the files in the last week, which I think is a little bit of what you were saying before that you thought Trump was doing. I think he's trying to do a little bit of a flood the zone thing too.
Yeah.
Just keep throwing stuff at all other people and you don't stand out quite as much. Yeah. On social media in general, it's really just been such a chaotic thing. There are already fabricated documents and fabricated pictures going around. Again, I don't really see, in terms of earth-shaking developments in U.S. politics, I haven't seen anything yet. Maybe something kind of sneaks out that we're not aware of. But it's a lot of stuff with people on the margins. We do have the fact that all the people who believed in these massive conspiracies, they're all back. The Pizzagate people,
yes,
somehow.
Do we want to remind people what Pizzagate is, Vince, for touching it?
I really don't. I cannot believe my country is coming up with this stuff. But yeah, the Pizzagate conspiracy started during the 2016 election. And John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's chief of staff, his emails were hacked and then they were leaked. It's not really sure how this Pizzagate theory started. One of the theories I've read is that basically people were on sites like 4chan and they were started it as kind of like a joke. That they started reading the emails and saying, oh, there's all these codes in the emails. This turns into cheese pizza supposedly now means child molestation. Yeah. And as is often the case with some of this stuff, what starts as pretty much insanity as even a joke, people wind up believing. And some of these emails literally are like, hey, you need to order 20 pizzas for the volunteers in Wisconsin. Like, it's just the most banal and boring stuff, and they're reading all this stuff into it. And there's a pizzeria in Washington, D.C. called Comet Ping Pong, which becomes, the center of this theory. And it's called Pizzagate. Since Watergate in the 70s, every political scandal gets a gate.
Now, the that went into this pizza place. Do you remember his name?
Oh, you're talking about Edgar Madison Welch, who drove up
Yes,
from North
he's an
Carolina?
Irish surname no less.
Yeah, not the biggest credit to our kind. He reads about this and he drives up to Comet Ping Pong. He kicks the door in with an assault rifle and 2 loaded pistols because he's going to go rescue all the children who are being abused by Democrat elites in the basement of this pizzeria. He shoots off the lock of a closet, which he thinks goes to the secret dungeon. It's got computers in it. He realizes, this is there. He surrenders and kids are traumatized. All the employees are traumatized. It's just this bizarre thing. He winds up serving 3 years in jail. He gets out. And then last year he was killed by police during a traffic stop. He allegedly pointed a handgun at the cops. And of course that created all its own conspiracy theories, right? He was right all along and they had to silence him. But all the Pizzagate people somehow are back saying that these files prove that they were right. I'm not entirely sure how that is, but...
So that conspiracy is nearly 10 years old. And my reading of that conspiracy theory, at the core of it was that there was elites. It was Hillary and Bill Clinton that were targeted, were they not? They were trafficking children and molesting children and all that.
Yeah, and other Democratic figures. Because, again, all the emails come from Hillary Clinton's campaign
the core of the conspiracy was that powerful, wealthy elites were abusing children. So we're back to Pizzagate at the moment, but it's Epstein Gate.
Yeah.
And Epstein Gate obviously has more substance, but I think the core of their belief, whatever about where it came from, it turns out they were partly right almost.
I guess a little bit. And that's the QAnon argument too, the QAnon victory lap. QAnon kind of developed after Pizzagate, but it has that same core belief that you're talking about, that there is a global elite that are pedophiles, and depending on the version, they're sucking hormones out of babies to make themselves live longer, and their satanic rituals and all this stuff. And I guess from a very, very high level, you can say that they were in the right direction. I would push back on that. Those theories are really, really detailed. Again, Pizzagate, the people who pushed Pizzagate, some of whom, believe it or not, are still pretty major influencers a decade later in the
within
right-wing
the Trump
ecosystem.
administration as well.
I'm sure there is. I mean, there's Jack Posobiec, I might be saying his name wrong, was a big Pizzagate guy. That's how he got his start. They're pushing pretty specific things. QAnon is based on the cryptic postings of this guy named Q, who's supposedly an insider in the Trump administration, who's posting in like 2018 that, they're going to arrest Hillary next week. Oh, the storm is coming. That's their favorite things. So, no, there's nothing here that actually supports any of those details.
I think there's an element, some people out there, and we might be guilty of that here, thinking that it's just a case of another rich guy with the disgusting friends story, when it's probably more like a collaboration with some of the world's worst institutions. Wall Street, European royals, senior global politicians and power brokers. As you said, the conspiracy theory lived in the same internet swamp as the lizard people and chemtrails and, who's Tull McAdoo. Now, suddenly you might decide the outcomes of the midterms in the United States and whether some European countries keep their royal families. The question isn't just who flew the plane, it's how something this grotesque sat in plain sight for decades. And where were the people who were supposed to be watching? Why were they always looking the other way? So I think it does feel quite the conspiracy theory. It's just that, there's a smoking gun there, but, the dead body is yet to be found.
That's a really interesting way to put it. If you're somewhat new to the story, you might think it is really terrible. Rich guy has some friends doing some really terrible thing. But this story is a lot bigger. It's a lot more bizarre, and it's a lot more layered than that. And it goes back a long way. I mean, you said for decades. That's really not an exaggeration. I mean, I think we're going to try and talk about that a little bit. We are going to try and avoid going too far down the rabbit hole for a couple of reasons. The first is that there's like 8,000 other podcasts and Substacks who have delved into every detail of his life. And we don't want to be like Path to Power and steal someone else's idea. But I enjoyed it. But the reason that there are 8,000 podcasts, the reason that this story has been such a potent online conspiracy theory is that it's really hard to come to a satisfying answer about why nobody did anything. And it's really hard to find a satisfying answer about who the hell Jeffrey Epstein was, where his money came from, what he was doing this whole time. his life is unexplainable pretty much from the jump.
There's so little known about his early life and what propelled him into the higher echelons of power society. And this is why the story has such legs. It's all he's surrounded in fog.
I think the issue there, though, we do know a lot about his early life. We just can't explain it. Like, that's the thing. We have all these facts. We know what he did. It's just really weird that he was able to do it. And the other thing that makes it enticing is that it's a story that can fit any political perspective you want, right?
It's that kind of rare scandal that has something for everybody's paranoia.
Yeah.
The left looks at Epstein and sees kind of late stage capitalism and a gimp mask, and maybe a collar, probably. Right. The right looks at him and sees the QAnon crazy people were right.
Yep.
You can pitch this as a story about billionaires or the deep state or media elites or Trump or Clinton, the Illuminati maybe. The only common thread is that everybody's absolutely certain it proves what they already believed. And that's like every other conspiracy theory.
Of course, yeah.
But nobody can explain how somebody is so toxic and radioactive as Epstein keeps getting invited everywhere in high society without setting off the smoke alarms or the alarm bells.
Yeah, you can't explain.
It's very strange.
That's what's different about this conspiracy theory. It's difficult, it's close to impossible to find a coherent story that explains Epstein's life and just says, oh, no, this is just your standard conspiracy theory nonsense. Kind of that nothing to see here argument. It just does not hold. Bizarre events are just going on basically from the time he's 21, 22 years old. I know that we do have a lot of listeners who probably aren't familiar with why this is such a big story beyond the sexual part of it, beyond the 2019 conviction and suicide and his connection to Trump. It is bigger than that. So
let's start at the beginning, Sophie, shall we? Start at the start.
Yeah, let's do that. So he's born in 1953 in Brooklyn. So like Trump, he's a New Yorker. Like Trump, he is from what they call the outer boroughs. Trump is from Queens. Epstein is from Coney Island, which is literally as far as you can get from Manhattan while being in New York City.
It's a song, isn't it? It's a song. Coney Island is a song, isn't it? By the National and Taylor Swift.
It is as far from Manhattan as you can get geographically, unless you're talking about Staten Island, which is basically New Jersey anyways. There's like 4 people who got that joke, but they all enjoyed it. For people who are not from New York, when they think of New York, they're thinking of Manhattan, skyscrapers and the opera and Central Park. Brooklyn in the 1950s is just a very, very middle class, working class, family oriented, neighborhood oriented kind of place. His mother is a homemaker and is an assistant at the local school. His father is a groundskeeper for the city parks department.
That's all very normal and very humble beginnings for someone who would go on to create so much havoc even long after he's dead.
It stands out in contrast to what an insane life he leads, how normal his upbringing is. I mean, he even goes to public school. By most accounts, he's not necessarily popular. He's not necessarily outgoing. He doesn't seem all that remarkable. The one notable exception, he skips 2 grades in school.
Yeah, that's like skipping a year here for our Irish listeners. That's what that is. So he becomes one of the most well-connected people in the world, but he doesn't start out with those connections, does he?
He's not the son of wealth who kind of climbs the ladder within the elite. He is completely and totally outside the elite. He's like literally physically, he's not anywhere close to the elite. The elites in 1965 do not live in Coney Island, with all due respect to any listeners we have there. He attends a pair of universities in New York, the last one being New York University, which is a pretty well-respected private university that is in Manhattan. He drops out in 1974. A few months later, we get kind of the first weird event in his life, which as soon as we get through the details, you'll understand why the conspiracy theories start here.
Okay.
He has dropped out of college. He does not have a degree, but he is hired as a teacher at the Dalton School in Manhattan. And it's weird in general to get a job as a teacher without a college degree here. It's really weird here because Dalton then and now is one of the most prestigious schools in New York City and indeed in the entire country.
How much does it cost to go to school there for a year, Vince?
Right now, for this school year, it's $68,000.
Okay, that's twice as expensive as the most expensive school in Ireland. So what's the explanation here? I've read numerous stories, all contradictory.
The New York Times interviewed a historian of the school. she said that the headmaster there, a guy named Donald Barr, had done this a few times during that period. He just kind of focused on people he thought were impressive, and he was less interested in credentials and things like that. The problem is we actually don't know whether Barr himself made the hire because he left around the same time that Epstein got there. And there are a couple other odd aspects to the story, to put it mildly. The year before Epstein starts at Dalton, Donald Barr writes a novel about a sex trafficking ring in outer space.
To be clear, this is not a joke about Elon Musk. No, this is true. This actually happened, yes?
It is true. I was laughing at you taking, that was a well-timed shot at Musk. But no, it is true. Yeah. He absolutely wrote this book. You can still buy it. You have to spend a lot of money to buy it. It's out of print.
What's it called?
Oh, jeez. That's such a terrible title. I didn't know, probably because I didn't want to know. It's called Space Relations.
Space Relations. Okay, yeah. Some sort of very nasty, incestuous thing going on in the Amazon.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be a double entendre of some kind.
Space Relations. That could be
Space Relations, a slightly gothic interplanetary tale.
Right, that sounds very pedo-y, to be perfectly
honest. It really does. I'm just going to give you one sentence from Wikipedia. In 2008, the novel was criticized by Pornokish for devoting too much attention to character development rather than world building. So I guess we can't.
Okay. Well, I'd be giving that a miss, and I won't be bringing it to read.
We're not doing that much research for the podcast. We do our work, but for Christ's sakes. So Donald Barr writes this book, and then believe it or not, I mean, another thing that we're not joking, you can't make this bleep up. Donald Barr's son is named William, and William will become Attorney General during Trump's first term.
Right.
Yeah. Which is just, I mean, how is this even possible? And
it's all it's all very nasty, incestuous-y. It's all very seedy.
Right up front, you get to this idea of this elite world where everyone's connected, right? I mean, Epstein gets a job, and the guy's son is the Attorney General. And so when all these theories, these QAnon things of the idea of this elite being like a concrete, static group, this feeds into that right away. And one of the long-running theories about Epstein has been that he's part of Israeli intelligence. And I think it's a little problematic that people jump to the Israeli part, like, he's Jewish and that's where his loyalty would be. But the intelligence explanation more broadly gets appealing very obviously right here. I mean, how weird is this? He drops out of college, and he drops out of college like a few months before he was going to finish. It's, why did he do that? Then he gets hired by a guy who's writing novels about interstellar prostitution.
Yeah.
It's just so bizarre.
You have the makings of good conspiracy theory there. But a number of publications across Europe, including the Financial Times, The Guardian, Der Spiegel, all the Eastern European news outlets are suggesting there's a very real possibility that Epstein was running a Russian-backed compromat, which is basically catching people in very bad situations and blackmailing them. Epstein appears to be kind of like an intelligent man on some level. Some even said he was brilliant. Was he really that brilliant?
What's weird is it's kind of hard to tell, which is going to be the answer to a lot of questions about him, unfortunately. Again, he did skip 2 grades, which is really rare. And there have been interviews with his classmates. They talk about how he's a math whiz. He was evidently like a pretty brilliant piano player. And if you go back to some of the articles written before his conviction, there are people pretty high up in scientific fields who are friends with him who say, oh, he's brilliant. He has a buddy who's a Harvard professor of theoretical physics. And he says that they're talking about theoretical physics all the time.
I do. I talk about that all the time as well, Vince. Yeah, go on.
Actually, that's going to be our next episode.
Yeah, well, we sit around smoking cigars talking about theoretical physics, yeah.
We're going to debate the Irish and American interpretations of theoretical physics. But there are other people who he funds, who he meets, who he doesn't know as well, who are pretty dismissive of what he knows. They think that he's kind of a dilettante, that he's not this kind of autodidact who kind of picks brilliant things up. And even in his Wall Street career.
We
What's
call
that?
him a spoofer here in Ireland.
A spoofer. I like that. That's a good one.
I've listened to, there was a Harvard professor guy that turned into a financial whiz. And he dabbles in theoretical physics, a guy called Weinstein.
Okay.
Said he met him, and this Weinstein fella's a maths whiz and all the rest, and said that 5 minutes in Epstein's company and he didn't know what he was talking about. He had no business in the Harvard theoretical physics department, none whatsoever. He didn't know what he was talking about.
You hear that about both sides of that in his Wall Street career, which is another bizarre thing. He teaches at Dalton. By all accounts, he's not a very good teacher. Through a parent of one of the students, he meets a guy named Ace Greenberg. Ace Greenberg runs an investment firm called Bear Stearns. He has built Bear Stearns up from basically nothing to become one of the most important and powerful investment banks in the world. Bear is so powerful that it collapses in late 2008. And for people in American finance, its collapse is just kind of like the seminal moment of the crisis. It is the day that everyone went, oh my God, this could be like the end of the financial world. The idea that Bear could fail was just inconceivable. And Greenberg is the guy who built Bear Stearns.
Epstein gets a job as assistant. Am I right there?
Yeah. Greenberg takes a liking to him. Epstein is hired as a junior assistant even. Almost immediately gets caught fabricating college degrees that he didn't have. They give him a second chance. Within 4 years, he has completely climbed the rungs. He has gone from junior assistant to partner, which is like some 1980s movie. This just doesn't happen. But there are people at Bear who go, oh my God, this guy traded stock options and he was a math whiz and he knew how to value them. And there are other people at Bear who go, no, the guy was just a psychopath who hung out with other psychopaths and used that to climb the rungs. Does get to be partner, which is a huge accomplishment. And then he leaves in 1981. And again, people go, why does he leave one of the best jobs in finance?
Huh?
And the reason seems to be that he was doing shady shit. He was violating regulations. He and his friends say, oh, no, he just want to go out on his own. Goes out on his own. He winds up involved in a company that is executing a Ponzi scheme. The other guy in the company goes to jail for 18 years. Epstein's never charged.
Why not?
Again, people are like, how is this possible? Right?
That sounds shady.
It does sound shady, and it just sounds weird. It sounds unexplainable. He starts a hedge fund. He tells everybody he has this hedge fund, but he only takes clients that are billionaires. Okay. And so he has people telling the press story that like, oh, some guy went to him with $700 million, and Epstein was like, no, I'm not going to run your money. Meanwhile, at the same time, there's articles coming out going, no one really knows how this guy makes money. There are real people in Wall Street who hear about him and all his money, and he winds up at this mansion, and they're trying to figure out what he's doing. And one guy is quoted in 2019 as saying that he looked around for Epstein in the early 2000s, asked around trading desks on Wall Street, and literally not a single person had done any business with him.
So he was getting money from somewhere, Vince.
Right, and people do presume that he might actually be doing something along the lines of Madoff.
Okay.
That he has a few clients and he's telling them that he's trading, and meanwhile he's just stealing their money. And he gets his hooks into a guy named Les Wexner, who had founded a few retail chains here in the U.S., a multi-billionaire.
What did he found Victoria's Secret, was it?
Victoria's Secret was his most famous one. If you're not familiar.
They've one in Grafton Street here in Dublin, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I got lost in there once. That was by accident. That's by accident, in case there's any security camera footage of me. That was by accident.
Yeah, one of my favorite stupid stories, we went into one when I was like 18. This is back in the days when we had malls everywhere. When you were 18, you went to malls and you had nothing to do. And my buddy went into Victoria's Secret and put a bra on his head. And he literally looked at the salesperson direct in the eye and he said, trying to get this for my girlfriend, but I don't know if it'll fit. Her head is smaller than mine. I don't know why. And every time I hear Victoria's Secret, I think back on that memory of being an 18-year-old and smile. In any case, Epstein all this money comes up and again, no one really has an explanation for it. It seems like it's probably crime. It seems like it's swindling, but somehow, to the point that started this whole rant, he never gets charged. He never gets in trouble. No one's reporting him. You know, if he's stealing assets from Wexner, why does Wexner keep ties with him for years? And none of this has been explained. And that all culminates in 2007. He signs a plea agreement. There have been multiple charges that he's trafficking underage women to a mansion in Palm Beach, Florida.
How does he get caught, Vince?
Parents of kids start going to the cops. And it starts an investigation, which turns into a federal investigation because it's crossing state lines. And they negotiate a plea deal with him. He probably easily could have done 20 years, if not more, in federal prison. He negotiates his plea agreement. He does 13 months in county jail. It's work release, so he's out all day. He basically goes to jail to sleep, and he goes back to his mansion.
Bizarre.
Yeah. The plea agreement includes a provision that immunizes his unnamed co-conspirators. There's lawyers who look at this, go, literally, I've never heard of such a thing. Like, I don't even know what this could be.
So that means he's not allowed to name them.
It means that if he does name them, that they're immune from charges. Hopefully that's not too winding or too boring. Again, there are people who are doing 50 podcast episodes on what we just covered in 8 minutes or whatever it was.
Okay.
But it is just that sense over and over again. He just keeps having money. He keeps having contacts. He keeps getting favors, and no one can explain what the bleep he's doing the whole time.
Guy that was in charge of prosecuting him a decade later winds up in Trump's cabinet, yeah?
The U.S. attorney who negotiates that plea deal, Alex Acosta, a decade later is named to Trump's cabinet as the Secretary of Labor. Yeah.
That's another Trump connection.
It is another Trump connection. And it's just another what aspect of this. I mean, again, you just see over and over again, like, how? How? Like, how does this happen?
Okay. Sounds like everybody's been paid off for looking out for Epstein.
It really does. And that's why I think the intelligence theories are attractive, even though I don't necessarily believe them. It's why people get so involved in researching this. It's why it's such a cottage industry, and it's why the story is just not going away.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trump shows up something like in the latest batch of Epstein files, like something like 38,000 times he's mentioned, or whatever that is.
I'm not surprised.
That's 38,000 out of 3 million, so that's he's mentioned 1.2% of the time. Trump turning up in the Epstein files is one of the plot twists that will get a TV writer fired for being too on those things.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the man who turned his life into a gold leaf tabloid headline somehow has managed to wander into one of the darkest footnotes of America's elite sleaze archive, you know?
Yeah.
And that now he's desperately invested in the nation believing that he didn't really know anything about Epstein at all, apart from there's any amount of videos, any amount of pictures, any amount of emails. Do you think there is substance to the allegations against Trump?
I honestly don't. Trump has said basically whatever it was about 2004, 2005, they cut ties.
The problem there, Vince, is that he said to cut ties in 2004 or 5, but he's showing up in emails way past that. After Epstein was found guilty of being a paedophile, Trump is still showing up in emails.
Yeah, but it's not like he's emailing Epstein. It's not like there's pictures of Trump at the island in 2012 or things like that.
Yeah.
I actually think for the most part, the files support the story, which is, I mean, just kind of a delicious irony that Trump has spent his entire life promoting these conspiracy theories, built his political career off the birther theory, which is completely imaginary. And now that's kind of coming around and potentially biting him in the ass. But he has just never acted like somebody who had sex with a 14-year-old on Epstein's Island. He just has never acted like that. He doesn't seem to think it's a big deal. He gets mad at his supporters for bringing it up. He's told when he runs for president the first time that it's a big issue. He doesn't really pay attention. We know Steve Bannon, who ran that campaign, was hugely worried about it because Bannon has emailed Epstein saying we were really worried about you. Trump doesn't really act like it. Doesn't seem to have any kind of plan. But we also know the people around him, as you mentioned here and before, are very worried, right? They're obviously trying to protect him. And so I think the way that you explain that is basically that Trump is the kind of guy who treats women very, very poorly. And his people around him are very concerned about that. And he is not, because the guys that treat women very, very poorly generally don't feel bad about it, generally don't think that they're supposed to be any different. They think conquest and all that stuff is just a game, right?
We call that toxic masculinity, right? Well,
yeah. Go back to the Access Hollywood tape, right? Before the 2016 election.
Yes, and if you're in the car listening with children, block them. His quote was, "You can grab him by the..."
Yep.
Which, that's not good.
Yeah, he says that's locker room talk, right? And I mean, you and I have both been in locker rooms. I didn't know too many guys who spoke like that.
I've been in a few dodgy locker rooms over the years. I remember a guy used to bang his head against the wall to get psyched up before a game. But
yeah, those guys.
Let's just say they would have been some of the most unwoke environments known to man.
Yeah.
And even that kind of vulgar language coming out of Trump's mouth would have been kind of frowned upon, you know.
There are guys he talked away. There are guys for whom, that is locker room talk. And I think he's one of those guys. I think he thinks chasing women and telling awful stories and all this stuff, like it's just part and parcel of it. But he has never really acted like there's a specific thing there that he has to hide.
Yes. Well, see, I'm going to push back there a little bit, right?
Okay.
So Trump has been found liable for sexual abuse, though, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. Yep.
What was the damage there? He was ordered to pay $5 million, I think.
Yeah.
Representative Ted Lieu, I think is he from California, is he?
Yeah.
He went on national TV yesterday and accused Trump of raping children in the Epstein Files.
So, yeah, I mean, he pointed out that there are really, really disturbing allegations towards Trump in the Epstein Files. There's no doubt about that.
There's no smoke without fire, would be my thinking there. And Trump has shown all the signs of an unrepentant misogynist, and he has been found liable of sexual assault. So hypothetically, if someone well-known was accused of engaging in very bad behaviour by over 30 different people and regularly denied it, but also spent years dropping very public hints about how much that person enjoyed very bad behaviour, and he even ran a pageant to find the best candidates to engage with in this very bad behaviour. What do you think the odds are of that person also engaging in very bad behaviour?
That infamous quote in 2002 where Trump says of Epstein, "It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side."
Yeah.
So I get all that. That said, this is a line that might infuriate most listeners even. What kind of behavior are we talking about? Because I think that's where the debate and the discussion and the search is right now. The idea that he is, quote, a pedophile, or that he committed statutory rape, or that he committed sex trafficking through Epstein. All I'm going to say is we don't have the evidence for it, and he has not acted like he has that skeleton in his closet. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means if you're really talking the worst of the worst behavior in this context, he's done awful things. His behavior towards women, I think, is awful. It's unforgivable. I don't understand why people have kind of so steadily looked past it. That part is quite odd to me, quite honestly. But it's not quite the same as saying that he was part of what Epstein was doing on that island.
No matter what Trump does, okay, here's my view on this at the moment, and we'll get away from Trump and we'll cross the pond into the UK.
Yep.
I will say this, right? No matter what he does for the rest of his presidency, these Epstein files are going to hang around his neck like a millstone. If he found a cure for cancer in the morning, if he found a cure for heart disease, it does not matter. This is hanging around his neck for the rest of his life. His presidency is a write-off from, for the rest of it, what's left of it.
You think?
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to, in both houses of Congress, seats are going to be won and lost over the Epstein files.
That may be true, given how divided we are. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and ultimately the blame lies with him, because he's going to be known as the Epstein president. In 100 years' time, when historians are looking back on his presidency, like Epstein's name is going to be the one name that stands out. So,
you think? I don't think that's the case at all. I think when we get a little bit of distance from this whole thing will be treated as a sideshow. Barring something much more concrete connecting him to post-2005 activity, I think that this is going to be something that is used as an example of what discourse was like right now, rather than a defining moment of Donald Trump's political career. I really do. I think when people get distance from it, people who are not part of it, who are not part of the uproar right now, I think we'll look at it quite differently.
Yeah, see, I think you're subscribing to the view in history that history doesn't really matter at the end of the day, maybe, or something to that effect in regards to the Epstein files of Trump. So everybody's been demanding them. Morning, noon and night in the United States have been demanding them. And the more you demand, the more Trump behaves erratically and says, I'm introducing trade tariffs, or I'm invading Canada. Take your pick of, whatever's going on. And I think the Epstein files should be seen in context in regards to Trump's behavior, in terms of every time somebody asks about the Epstein files, he just goes off, he flies off the plate and does something mad geopolitically. And I think they are related in that sense. So I think it does matter to history, that the Epstein files, that will matter to history in that sense.
That's an interesting point. I don't think that I've made that connection.
We don't have the distance as well. We don't have the distance to kind of, this is all happening in the moment. So we don't know.
Of course.
That would be my own kind of historical thinking on that going forward.
I'm curious to see if this just doesn't fade out of the news cycle. It has before, but you're right. I think the one problem that he has, and the thing that really may be a millstone, is the fact that it's even people in his own base are not going to be satisfied, because his attorney general told him last year that there was, quote, an Epstein list.
Yes.
And there's going to be a lot of Americans until we get the, quote, Epstein list, which they're now saying doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So maybe a very, very long wait for Trump to outlast the news cycle on this one. You might.
Yeah, and they're also saying there's another 3 million files they haven't released. So
right.
And by saying that, admitting they have them, they're going to come under pressure to release them. It's only, it's a news cycle. They're going to want to do that. But let's have a look across the pond, shall we, at the United Kingdom.
Yeah, as we said up front, possibly the more
interesting
more real
aspect.
world. Yeah.
In 2009, Europe was in the midst of a crisis. Banks were crashing all over the place. The economy was crashing. It was a really bad time for the European Union. Mandelson is alleged to forward on confidential Downing Street memos on proposed asset sales, tax policies, really confidential stuff, and the memos about discussing selling £20 billion of government-owned assets.
And let's point out real quick, passing them directly to Epstein.
Yes.
It's not like he leaked them to somebody who leaked them to somebody who got them to Epstein. He is contacting Epstein directly with this information. Yep.
Yes. And he was given information about really market-sensitive information, not meant for outside eyes, top secret stuff. Let alone a convicted sex offender. Like, he told Mandelson essentially that the EU was going to okay a bailout the very next day. If you had that kind of information, you could make a killing on bank shares or stocks and all the rest. So
yeah, that's the big one. When they announced that bailout, the euro jumps 2%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but for a currency to do that in one day is absolutely enormous.
So people are making a lot of money.
Stock indices in the UK and Europe jump anywhere between 4% and 6%. An idiot could make 20 times their money. Well, I'm not exaggerating. And that is a thing that has nothing to do with Epstein. Doesn't matter if he leaked it to Vince Martin. Doesn't matter that it's a sex offender on the other side. That is really, really bad behavior.
Very poor behavior, some might say. No, he's resigned from the House of Lords. Not that does anything effective. And the Met Police in the UK are kind of circling the wagons with a criminal investigation. And the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is furiously pretending that he only just discovered one of New Labour's greatest Machiavellian operators might actually behave like a Machiavellian operator. No, I say a lot of people would have been talking about, he's this great Machiavellian character, but treachery is another word which you might call him a traitor. So.
Yeah, there is a little bit of an irony in that reveal, is that he, out of anyone so far, might be taking the biggest direct hit to his reputation. And he's the one guy that we do know wasn't chasing trafficked women, because he's a gay man, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, there is evidence he was paid for his services, so.
Yeah, there's some payments that went to his partner, supposedly, and things like that. He's admitted to some of them. And of course, as with everything here, if there's a little bit of evidence in this dump, everyone's going to believe that there's much more evidence in the next 3 million files.
There has been breaking news this afternoon saying that Peter Mandelson offered to set up a meeting with Putin and Jeffrey Epstein. Again, they're smoking guns all over the place. There's a trail of crumbs for all the conspiracy theorists to follow. That's where people's heads are in Europe at the moment. Donald Tusk, the Polish Prime Minister, is launching an investigation whether Epstein is a Russian asset.
Wow.
He's been openly investigated for that this afternoon as we're recording. I'm live Googling here at the moment.
Again, as we said up front, like the idea that this might be bigger in Europe, quite strange. On Twitter, the political editor of the Times of London, which is not exactly a conspiracy theory-minded outlet, said that Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, is fighting for his political future. I mean, this is a scandal that could bring down a government, and I think a lot of people believe that. They just didn't think the government was going to be The United Kingdom government.
Yeah. Yes, it's bizarre. And Keir Starmer's chief of staff is a Cork man, would you believe? And
now, how about that?
An Irishman, no less. But you've got to wonder about his political antenna and radar in regards to Peter Mandelson. Peter Mandelson has been sacked twice already by previous prime ministers for engaging in what some would call very poor behaviour also.
Okay.
So this is the third
time. That just means that he knows where all the bodies are buried, right?
Yes, this of course. If I go missing, the same thing has happened to me. You might have thought the first 2 times he was sacked kind of might set off alarm bells about his fitness for any office, let alone an ambassadorship to the United States. He was sacked twice already, and people thought, okay, let's give him a third chance. Third time lucky.
So one thing I will say as American is if you look at him, you can see like why they named him ambassador, just because he looks like the British ambassador to the United States. He is straight out of Central Casting. Some bad romantic comedy about the vice president falling in love with her Secret Service agent or something. Like he would absolutely, the British ambassador to the U.S. would absolutely look and sound like Peter Mandelson.
He bears a passing resemblance, now that you mention it, to the British ambassador in the West Wing. I don't know if anybody get that pop reference to the West Wing, but there was very famously a British ambassador, a rake of a fellow, that bared more than a passing resemblance to Peter Mandelson.
My God, the theory has its roots in Hollywood too. Who knows how far this
if you want to Google British ambassador to United States West Wing, and you will see what I mean.
Well, I don't know that you really want to suggest people Google that right now. Yeah, who knows what else their search the algorithm is going to swallow that up.
And that was off the cuff, unscripted, and just in the back of my head. So
all right. Well, that is as good a place as any to end. Kind of a goofy, strange, possibly conspiratorial story to cap. I guess goofy is not the right word for Epstein, but definitely strange, definitely conspiratorial, definitely awful, and definitely not over, I think is how we can sum it up for sure.
You don't believe me yet, Vince. I will get you on board, but I do believe this is one of those conspiracies people will look back at and go, oh my God, it was all correct.
We'll see. We have a lot more to learn, I'm sure. Whether we want to or not, we'll be discussing this again in the future. But on Tuesday, we're going to get back to the lighter side a little bit, right, Toll?
Yes. We're going back to part 2 about sport. I want to find out all about college sports in the United States.
It's its own kind of crazy. We'll have some fun with that, a little more about the GAA. But we do hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, happy Super Bowl weekend for those who partake. I'm Tull from the Irish Politics Newsletter.
I'm Vince from Wall Street, Maine. Bye now.
Bye-bye.